Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of First and Last, looking at a track from Turnstile's latest album that we're going to compare and contrast with something from their first album that we heard yesterday. Today's track is called Mystery, and it comes from their Glow On. Yes, from their Glow On album. Let's see what they're bringing to the table today. Interesting start. Very different from what we heard yesterday. Okay, there we go. That's more of what I was expecting from them. That's a fun little idea right here. If we cut out our synth intro, the synth-tro, and our south-tro, no, that doesn't work as well. Our intro and outro that uses the synthesizer, we end up with a track that 2 minutes tops of the meat, the punk, the pop punk meat of the track. Very, very short song. Two ideas. We run verse, chorus, guitar solo, and then we're done. The guitar solo is technically the outro, and it's interesting. This possibly came out a year ago. The video came out in May of 2021. But who knows when the album came out? Probably around that time. But it follows that trend. We've been exploring this with a lot of the modern pop stuff we've checked out where we have this verse, chorus, outro, and it's interesting to see it reach into the pop rock world as well. Um, let's see, musically, this is going to be a quick breakdown. Our verse is a 4 chord verse. It's just chord progressions on our guitar, and our bass is giving us um, root tone following along with it. But we have a chord, and then we come down, and we go above it, and we go between those two, and then we come back up, right? So we have this bouncing back up and down kind of thing. There is one small addition to it, is that on our fourth one, third, fourth, instead of 4 beats, it's 2 beats, and then we have 2 more beats where it comes down again. I don't think it hits our lowest one. It hits another in between before coming back up to our first chord. That's our verse. We have a shouty kind of melodic thing going on in the vocals. Um, well, not shouty. It's like it's halfway between spoken word and sung. Um, and then we get to our verse, which I mean, our chorus, which I think is interesting in that the first time we heard it, it was just the bass line. We heard this bass line again, leading us into our outro synth idea. But the second time we get to the chorus, we have a full band present. And we have chords, we have the bass line that we heard the first time, and we have this left hand guitar that kind of does like these 2 or 3 notes and then waits like a beat, or sorry, a bar, and then comes back in with another 2 or 3 notes. But the chorus is so short that it only plays that little embellishment twice, giving it a whole 6 notes before leading us into the guitar solo. Um, it's really interesting given how short of a time we spend in these sections entirely. If we break everything up evenly, we have to divide 2 minutes by five. Um, since our second verse is unique, it really only gets like 15 to 20 seconds of existing. And they decided that this was the time they wanted to do a variation on the chorus and not just go with the bass line idea that we did for the chorus one, but also to have an embellishing guitar line above the chords on our rhythm guitarist and the melody on our vocals. It's massively condensed is what I'm getting at, and it just surprises me. They they put a lot of effort into something that isn't around for very long, and I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, I just appreciate it. It's an interesting tidbit in my ears. Um, and the vocals here shift between singing and shouting. There's that one where he says it's a mystery, and it's just got this really nice compression on it. The guitar solo is a brand new melody. It kind of reminded me of the Sweater song, that whole guitar solo section from Weezer. Um, I don't know, it was the chords and the solo over it for some reason. The rest of the song kind of gave me a Sum 41 vibe, but when we got to that solo section, my brain went straight to Weezer. I don't know why. I don't know if anyone else got that. Um, but yeah, it was nice hearing a new melody over it. I don't believe they were copying the vocal melody from either the verse or the chorus. It's a brand new section. It wasn't super intricate, but we had just nice flow to it. I really love the pacing of it. And it further explored the emotions without the words attached to them that our vocals have been alluding to with their melody. Then we get this, just the bass line into our synthesizer to fade out. I don't know what to make of this. To me, it just sounds like a pop punk track. We have a pretty typical 4 bar or yeah, 4 bar chord. We have a melody over top that doesn't sound too unique. This is just super iterative music, and I don't really get too much of an emotional element out of it other than the shouting, which introduces some sort of urgency or anger in the chorus. But for the most part, this just sounds like a song to me that had lyrics written separately and were put on top of it. And yeah, it's a jam. I enjoy it. I'm kind of a fan of pop punk. Grew up with it. It's got a nice place in my heart. But yeah, there's not a lot of complexity to dive into from a critical standpoint on this track. However, I do want to do a little bit of compare and contrast here, um, because that's the whole point of this week is to see where a band came from and what they're doing now. And I think it's really interesting that this is pretty much the same band, but there is a maturity to it all. Now, granted, I'm looking at two songs in a vacuum, plus not seeing anything in between. So it could be that they had an experimental turn, or it could be that this is the song that is most like their older works. I don't have any of that information. But just comparing these two, there's a lot of similarity. They're both rooted in punk. The other one was a bit more hardcore, which just, at least to me, meant it was more abrasive. But they still both share the same amount of, or the same type of roots. What I really like about this is that it showcases. Now, granted, I don't know what the timing is. I don't remember when yesterday's track came out. So I can't compare it to when this track came out, which is 2021 ish. Um, but I had mentioned yesterday that the band had more chops, more skill on their instruments than they were showcasing in the track. And I like how this song showcased that, even if there was a time difference here, even if this is later in their, in their discography, in their works, there's a lot more vocal maturity in here without sacrificing some of that punky angst that we heard in Heavy Hand. The guitar work in here showcases a lot of growth in melodic writing, even though we don't get to hear a lot of it. There's also the compositional growth that we get that little bit of embellishment. We get the synth bookends to kind of showcase an extra element on the track. Um, and the drumming is more rhythmically technical in this track as well. All things that I think they still could have done on whatever album Heavy Hand came on. Maybe not to this level. There's probably some practicing and improvement that went on over the years, but I think that this type of writing is something they had in them, and it would not surprise me if there was something similar to this, even if it is a bit rougher around the edges on that album that Heavy Hand came off of, the first one. All right, I'm gonna hit the lyrics real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. Maybe it's just where I'm at in life. Um, but I like these lyrics. It seems to be about grappling with the what is that phrase? The mortality of humanity. Specifically one's own mortality. The verse and the chorus are both really interesting. I mean, the two verses are interesting in that they look at either end of the situation. Verse 1 says, There's a gun to my head. I believe in holding on to life, but I'm afraid to. Which almost feels, I mean, this could represent a lot of things. I think it leans into verse 2 and unlocks it a little bit. But the way that I read this is that, death is around the corner. I really want to hold on to life, but also it's kind of scary, right? Maybe I mean, we talked about assuming that Heavy Hand was a personal song. This person might have had a rough growing up. Um, and so maybe some of that trauma is still there. It affects them. Verse 2, though, says, There's a clock in my head. Is it wrong? Is it right? I know you're scared of running out of time, but I'm afraid too. So there's this weight of death around the corner. We have a set amount of time on this planet um, that can either be taken from us, which is the metaphor of the gun, or we can just naturally run out. And we don't know when that time is that will naturally run out. There's a clock in our body, right? And so all of this is really scary. But this is where the chorus comes in. I think this is the best part of the whole thing. It talks about the lack of, well, the disillusionment in growing up and kind of realizing that this is all it is. right? Especially if you've come from uh, a disenfranchised origin. You know, maybe you were, your family wasn't rich, right? And maybe that's still the case, right? Maybe you're still fighting to do shows and hoping that they can cover the bills for next month until the next tour starts. The chorus says it's been so long, which I kind of read if I've been on this planet for so long. Is all the mystery gone? And I really like that line of just kind of losing that imagination of, what am I going to be when I grow up? I could be anything. I want to be this and I want to be that. And then I'll finally have money because I'll have a job and I can buy this and I can buy that and no one can tell me no. And it's like all this childhood freedom that you envision. And then when you get there as an adult, it's just 9 to 5 and bills and being drugged down and depending on where you live, really bad work-life balance is sort of built into the culture. And life just isn't as glamorous anymore. It loses that brilliance, that wonder, that mystery. It's very knowing. You know what you're going to do tomorrow, and you know what you're going to do next week, and next month, and next year. Assuming there isn't some wild thing, or you get fired, or there's a once in a lifetime recession that happens for a second time or a third time in your life, you know exactly what's going to happen. And that wonder is gone. And yeah, I don't know if that's what their intention was. That's my read out of it. Like I said, it's all very vague anyways. So I'm definitely ascribing some of my own personal biases into this, but the idea that it feels like time is running out, but also that every day is just kind of the same anyways. Yeah, yeah, that hits. Those are my thoughts on Turnstile's mystery. What'd you guys get out of it? Did you enjoy it? Anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on if I made any mistakes? Let me know. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here, has links for everything related to the channel in there. You can find a link to my music, you can find a link to the Discord server, you can find ways to support the channel, and so much more. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. Alright, we got a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. As usual, we'll continue on with this theme, check out some more fantastic music. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.